Let's say no to fear and no to worry. But this is how it creeps in. There's really, the world's filled with people that don't know God, and probably living under a sense of dread and foreboding. Maybe they have a sense that judgment is coming, and without Jesus it is. But I am not going to allow worldly people to project their pessimism and their dread of the future on me. For you and I who love God and know God, our future is bright. In fact, it's brighter than the past. The best days we have are ahead of us. In fact, it ends in heaven, and that's beyond anything you could imagine. So for a Christian to dread the future is just counterproductive. It's illogical. It's unscriptural. Christians ought to be excited about the future. The best things that will ever happen to you in your life are coming in the future. So I am not going to be afraid of the future. Then there was this Y2K scare. Remember that one? The Y2K scare was, if you weren't old enough to at that time to remember the computers, we all went to computers because they told us how great computers were. So everybody got their computers and they got all set up on computers. And then they said, uh-oh, we forgot to program into the computers the year 2000. So at 1999, at 12 a.m., when it becomes the year 2000, the computers are not going to recognize 2000. They're going to go back to 1900. And supposedly this was going to bring the modern world to a screeching halt. It was going to stop food distribution and water treatment plants, and we were all going to face starvation and dying of thirst. And I mean, they talked about the people started gathering food and putting them in bunkers and getting guns. I mean, prepared for a computer glitch that was going to bring the modern world to an end. And and I kept thinking, we've lived without computers, and I believe we could probably live without them in the future. It just didn't make sense to me. We serve a God who took 3 million people out into a desert with no food and water, and brought water out of a rock and provided food, manna from heaven. God did not let his people starve and die of thirst in the desert. I just can't see him. Maybe you think God's older now. God doesn't get old, but let's say God's older and more feeble now. Is that really true? Is modern technology going to overwhelm God's ability to rescue and help his people? Absolutely not. Don't buy into these. I'm going back and using these past phobias, fears, scenarios just to help us learn from them, because they're not done. There'll be plenty more in our lifetime, and they will be big, and they will be bad, and they will be unprovable, and they will be desperate, and they'll be upon us, and they'll try to convince us that life is going to end if this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen. I'm not going to buy into that. I'm going to serve God. I just have one life to live, and I'm not going to waste it worrying about things that haven't happened, that might not happen, that won't happen. Obviously, all of these things can't happen. The world can only end one way. And when I had that problem with the nuclear holocaust and the nuclear missiles, and I was 8 years old, I went home from school after the bomb drill, and I was so scared. I called my dad. I said, "Dad, I can't sleep." And he comes to my bedside and he said, "What's the matter, son?" He was a great dad. He always had the right answer except for this night. He said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I can't sleep because..." He said, "Well, why can't you sleep?" And I thought I was explaining something to him. I said, "Well, you may not be aware of this, but Russia has nuclear missiles pointed at us right now. And we have nuclear missiles pointed at Russia right now. And at any moment, somebody could push a button and launch those missiles, and the whole world would blow up in a nuclear blast. And I'm scared. I don't want to die. I can't sleep." And he wasn't prepared for such a deep conversation at 9 o'clock at night, I assume. And he looked at me with all the compassion he could muster, and he said, "Well, son, we've all got to die sometime." And I was like, "That's it? That's all you got?" And he got up and went to bed. He slept like a baby. And I'm like, gotta die sometime. That's what I'm trying to avoid. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to die in a nuclear blast. So I did what any, logical thinking 8-year-old would do at a moment like that. I called for my mom. And she came in and soothed my fears. But that's just, you've all got to die sometime. There's a quote from somebody that goes like this: a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a brave man only dies once. We could worry about 1,000 doomsday scenarios. We could develop a constant state of fear based on the future of the planet. And rather than that, I'd rather just believe God and enjoy my life, because really it can only end one way. Why worry about 1,000 different variations? And God's already told us how it's going to end. And God said we're not appointed to wrath. He's going to take care of us. He's going to watch over us. He's going to provide for us. He's promised us everything we need to live life here. And by us jumping forward into some kind of doomsday, into the world scenario, we are wasting a life that God has given to us that could be better spent in faith, in happiness, in joy, in helping others, in love. Listen, sometimes the best thing you can do for your friends and loved ones is just to be happy and just to not be worried. Quit dumping your concerns on everybody else. Reject them. Refuse to worry about things you can't change. Don't let that ruin the life that you're living. I got this article. I wanted to read a couple of things, and it's written about anti-natalists. And to me, this is the epitome of unbelief, unthankfulness, and you'll see what I mean. In February, a 27-year-old Indian man announced plans for an unusual lawsuit. He was going to sue his parents for begetting him, for being born. That's an interesting one. I wonder if that works. It was not our decision to be born, he told the BBC. Human existence is totally pointless. How ungrateful could you be? That is so sad. And that's what I'm saying. These scenarios, all this constant doom and gloom and dread, it affects people. People respond to this. And maybe it's just kind of a weight in the back of your mind. But some of these people are really living out these fears. And they're responding in ways like this guy. He's part of a movement called anti-natalists. These people wish they had never been born. I can't think of a better way to waste life than to be an anti-natalist. What an escape from reality. His complaint is that he believes it is wrong to bring new people into the world without their consent. Okay, I see the problem there. He wanted to sue his parents for a symbolic amount of money to instill that fear among parents in general, because parents don't think before having a child. So this philosophy is called anti-natalism. And I heard this one time, and this is more reality. This teenager got in trouble again, and one of his defenses was, well, I didn't ask to be born. And the father looked back and said, well, if you had, the answer would have been no, and go to your room, whatever. That's more reality. That's where I came from. But these guys have just totally gone completely crazy. And they've said that life, even under the best of circumstances, is not a gift or a miracle, but rather a harm and an imposition. I'm telling you, all of this doom and gloom is affecting people in very, very detrimental ways.
Greg Fritz Ministries wants to minister to you through prayer. Call our helpline at 918-749-7744, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. You can also order product and speak to someone about becoming a partner with Greg Fritz Ministries. We look forward to hearing from you today.